The silence around how race and ethnicity could and could not, or should and shouldn't, play into how I defined myself, how I interacted with the world around me was deafening.
Growing up as a mixed race minority in America can feel isolating for sure.
It can leave you feeling like you're constantly split between two places. I felt like obviously I was too black to be white, and yet I was too white to be black, and I didn't know where that left me. I saw all these ideas and images and stories of being successful and being beautiful and being what our society valued, and they were all embodied by my white counterparts, and I didn't know where my blackness left me. So I decided to interview my dad and Uncle Eric, my dad's biggest role model, to try to make some sense of what blackness had meant to them. My Uncle Eric was born in Tennessee in 1958, an epicenter of the civil rights movement with a deeply disturbing history of injustice and racial conflicts. Despite Negro efforts to remove Jim Crow practices in the 1880s, whites used the courts, state legislators, newspapers, local police, anarchy, and terrorism to enforce their new racial order of Jim Crow, leaving lasting implications on his childhood and his modern perceptions regarding race.
I think that right now it's a matter of us. We know it happened. We accept it happened. We say we're not going to let it happen again. Then we forget it. Then we leave it alone. And we move on.
I think I almost wanted my uncle to respond more boldly. I think I wanted this long speech about how important our culture and identity is. We never really acknowledged blackness in our family. There's never really a point of discussion or much of a foundation for our identities. And I think I'm finally beginning to understand why. For my uncle, his experience was one where race made him feel like a part of an outgroup, caused him to draw more into himself, made him adapt to a world that just wasn't designed for him to succeed. The way I approach my blackness is hereditary. It's been passed down through generations. It's what I learned from watching my dad and what he learned from my uncle and what my uncle learned from his father. We took the role of model minority upon ourselves, often thinking what we did represented our entire race and wanting to show that the stereotypical interpretation of blackness didn't speak for us. In my family, we were raised in a way to break the majoritarian narrative. We learned that we were different, that we had to work harder, and we had to not act too black.
I've always tried to break the stereotype of how people perceive other blacks, and I be that sounding board that, not every black man is from the ghetto, not every black man is a thug.
In most of your classes, to get a B, you had to do A work.
Right. Growing up, I was always told that I had to work twice as hard to get to where my white counterpart had. If I wanted to be, I had to do A work.
You always had to do more than the other kids next to you.
Mm-hmm. I'm not convinced we can just choose not to see race like my family implies. If race is so ingrained in our society that even blind individuals understand the concepts and how they create these divisions among us, is it just our privilege to choose to be seen for what we've done before we are seen for what we look like? My family was given optimal opportunities to make it out. We fought for them, sure, but we were seen as smart and capable because of the way we tailored our mannerisms to conform to society. We modeled what we saw to survive. Today, we still see this black narrative perpetuated in TV shows and movies, and we grow up and internalize it. It lowers our self-esteem, causes us to shrink into ourselves. We can either fight for that depiction or dissociate from it. For my family, we chose the latter. and I fear that maybe we've lost something in the process.
The repercussions of race in my family have not made us loud and boisterous. We were never the ones leading riots. We were the ones who bit our tongues, swallowed our pride, took care of our families, stayed in the South, and grew roots there, with the trust that it would get better, understanding that despite the world's perceptions that acting black is also being slow to anger, not taking offense too quickly, not assuming that they're always out to get you, and most importantly, working hard. I think that it's important to realize that was and still is being black. There isn't one right way to be black, but it is a privilege that my family can afford to not be defined by it or to actively think about our race. One I'm not sure we've even realized.